Today on the Tearsheet podcast.
Payoneer really found a way to be able to come and play on both sides of a market. And when you're able to be on both sides of a two-sided market, like a Visa or a MasterCard is with the acquirer and a processor side, right, and the issuer side, that Payoneer was able to do the same. We have a huge business having to do with large enterprises like the Airbnbs, the Walmarts of the world. And then we have a equally big business dealing directly with the SMBs. And so the ability to be in a position where you're on both sides of the marketplace, which allows you in some ways to go back to my D.E. Shaw days, to be a bit of a market maker in the middle as well, creates a tremendous opportunity and was really attractive to me as a place to head out.
Welcome to the Tearsheet podcast. I'm Zack Miller, editor at Tearsheet. There's still significant friction dealing with international transactions. Payoneer is a pioneer in the space of helping people and businesses transact across currencies. Charles Rosenblatt is the firm's new chief strategy officer. An executive with decades of experience in payments and financial services, Rosenblatt joins us on the podcast to talk about his new role and how Payoneer is positioned for future growth. He describes how the firm's value proposition is differentiated from the competition and how sitting on both sides of the transaction can propel future opportunities for the payments firm. Charles Rosenblatt is my guest today on the Tearsheet podcast. What could you do with better real-time consumer data? All data aggregation from Fiserv enables access to consumer permission data from over 18,000 sources. Lenders, advisors, fintech firms, and financial institutions can turn this data into actionable insight for their customers. Go to fiserv.com/alldata to learn more. Before we hop into our show, I wanted to tell you about Tearsheet's upcoming Challengers Conference. A first-of-its-kind event, this 2-day online conference is everything about digital banking. We'll have senior executives from top challenger banks like N26, Revolut, Oak North, and Betterment, as well as new entrants to the digital banking market like Intuit and Credit Sesame. It's all happening September 22nd and 24th. Go to tearsheet.co and click on conferences at the top to learn more and register.
My name is Charles Rosenblatt. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at Payoneer. As Chief Strategy Officer has different meanings at different companies. Here, I am responsible for our cross-organizational strategy, the corporate strategic partnerships and acquisitions, and a lot of the cross-organizational resource allocation. I've been in the payments industry, in both the card industry as well as the disbursements industry and such for approximately 20 years now.
Great. And thanks for joining us today, Charles. Can you tell, before we jump into the new role at Payoneer and catch up with what the company is doing now, I'd love to dig a little bit more into your background. You mentioned, a distinguished career across payments. Can you talk a little bit about what your background entailed and how you got to this role?
Sure. I started out in the hedge fund world at a firm called D.E. Shaw, where we did statistical arbitrage. So a little bit of a different background. Although somewhat coming full circle in payments. I then went into the credit card world where I worked at both Capital One and Washington Mutual, running multiple groups from the product group to running our partnerships and co-brands, as well as the association relationship with folks like Visa and MasterCard. And as the 2008 implosion came around with WAMU's takeover by Chase, I decided to sort of leave that realm of the world and spent the next 5 years or so consulting for large loyalty companies and large financial institutions like a Citibank, a Deluxe, a Cardtronics, and folks along those lines until about 2006 when I got involved with a company called Hyperwallet in the disbursement space. I was the chief customer officer at Hyperwallet and then left there to be part of a team to start a new company called Velo Payments, which was led by John Partridge, who's the former COO and president at Visa. I spent approximately 3 years there, and I've known Scott Gallant, our CEO, for a long time, and we spoke about opportunities earlier this year at Payoneer, as Payoneer was looking to expand and grow as it has been over the last 5 years. It's been a company, being in the disbursement space, it's always been a company that you sort of looked up to as a whole, and the opportunity to come and join the team here during this phase of growth was really exciting, and thus I made the move.
So I want to hear a little bit more about that decision. So given your background, given your experiences, given your talents, what was it about Payoneer that convinced you to make the jump? I assume, benchmarked against other offers, other opportunities out there. What was it specific about this one?
Yeah. In general, it's funny. I worked for a firm during a piece of that middle period where it was really talking about two-sided markets and the importance of two-sided markets. And there are many places like Hyperwall of the world who work on one side of the market. Payoneer really found a way to be able to come and play on both sides of a market. And when you're able to be on both sides of a two-sided market, like a Visa or a MasterCard is with the acquirer and a processor side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the issuer side, that Payoneer was able to do the same. We have a huge business having to do with large enterprises like the Airbnbs, the Walmarts of the world. And then we have a equally big business dealing directly with the SMBs. And so the ability to be in a position where you're on both sides of the marketplace, which allows you in some ways to go back to my D.E. Shaw days to be a bit of a market maker in the middle as well, creates a tremendous opportunity and was really attractive to me as a place to head out.
Got it. And in your introduction to the role, you talked a little bit about what the chief strategy officer role entails. Can we talk about some of the priorities you have in this role as you stepped in?
Sure. So, as a company that's growing tremendously, both from a core business perspective and from a product perspective, and we've added 2 new products over the last few years, one of which is our working capital product, which is lending money to the providing buyer financing essentially for the buyers and helping them grow their businesses, as well as our merchant services business, which is sort of our first foray into the acquiring side of the world. There was a need for someone organizationally to essentially look over how all of that's going to interact with each other. And so sort of the first of my tasks is more an inward facing role, really to look and figure out internally how we can make sure that the machine is working well together, that the new businesses are integrating well into the old businesses, and we have a absolutely great value proposition for our customers across the board.
And now a word from our sponsor. At Tearsheet's Day-to-Day conference, Fiserv's Paul Diegelman drilled down into the future of personal financial management.
Paul, you're talking about PFM 2.0.
It's actually 2 separate and distinct applications. Liquidity is a huge problem right now. People just don't have time to do things twice. Basically, most parts of the country shut down for COVID. Our PFM user growth was over 20% in the first 2 weeks alone. Underrated, 100%. How could we use AI to impact PFM? I'm up for anything that helps people. And to help people, you need an economic model.
To access the full video from Paul's talk, go to tearsheet.co/speedoflife.
That makes a lot of sense. And when you say the new businesses working well with the old businesses, does that entail something more than product? Does that entail go-to-market strategies? Does that entail resource allocation? How far does that extend?
So, from my perspective, my goal is to help be a capacity expander for the great leaders that we have within each of those areas and help them look at things and see things that perhaps they may not see because they're running very successful products and or businesses, right? And so, while I won't take a direct role in figuring out how they allocate the resource between each other in order to solve it, I may, as an example with a partnership we're working at right now, say, look, there are 3 different areas where this partnership makes sense. We don't need to run it out of one group rather than the other, which is what we've been doing historically. Let's take a more holistic look and make sure we are, both for our partner, our clients, our customers, and internally, we can provide the highest value add out of this rather than just, servicing one distinct business unit or product line.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess one thing you said as you were saying that, are you the first chief strategy officer at Payoneer? Is that a new position they created for you?
That's a good question. I believe that is the case, right? So I believe I'm not sure whether there's been one in the past. I know there hasn't been one in the last 10 years while Scott has been running the company. And so, yes, some of this role is sort of, to be fair, figuring it out as we go and figuring out what we need. And to tell you the truth, I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't think I've taken a role personally in the last 15 years where there hasn't been a piece of it that is open to figure out what the organization needs and how we can best utilize myself, the team I build, et cetera, as opposed to just saying, you know, here are the 4 things you're trying to check the box off. I don't think you can do that at a mid-sized company.
Yeah, it also sounds like you enjoy a challenge. What does that say? I guess whether this is a new role or it's one that hasn't been filled in 10 years, what does that say about Payoneer as a company and where they are in where you are in the maturation cycle?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are very excited, right? I mean, it's an exciting time overall for us because we basically have built a really, really nice business on a core basis of clients overall. And part of what you want to do with those clients is really grow your utility to those clients, right? And as you grow your utility to those clients, essentially you need to bring in different folks with different skill sets. And I think we've done that. We brought in a gentleman, Yoel, who runs our working capital group, who, you know, predates me coming in because I've only been here 3 months. But, you know, he has immense expertise in lending, in finance, coming from, you know, a great background there. And I think you need to bring in folks who can help the core business with sort of subject matter expertise. And I think part of what Scott was viewing and the company was viewing is, as we continue to grow into financial services, we have great talent internally, but it would be helpful to have someone who has 20 years experience in financial services and payments to come in and add some subject matter expertise on that realm for the company.
Got it. So I think it's a good time now to talk about the core business, what it looks like, where you guys are, with particular focus on sort of how you're positioned vis-a-vis competition.
Yep. So, you know, one of the things I mentioned earlier was much of the competition we have is one side of the two-sided market, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you think about where we are versus competition, we provide value to everyone in the value chain here, from the marketplaces to the sellers. And we actually, through our B2B business, which is one of our largest growing businesses internally, we actually provide help to sellers working with other sellers that are even just in this marketplace ecosystem. And so, you know, coming from one of the competitors, now granted I was there a while ago at Hyperwallet, right? Hyperwallet has a fantastic business, but it is focused solely on one of those legs of the stool, right? We see other folks like the TransferWises, like the Airwallets, like the LandPay, and others who come up in general. Mm-hmm. But at least from what I've seen, which is, you know, again, 3 months in, when we want to go out and get a business, we feel like we have the best equipped product in order to do that. And thus we win a fair proportion of the quote unquote RFPs that we're part of. So that's something I think the company historically should be proud of, and hopefully we'll continue to do that and partner with folks on that in the future.
Do you see competition coming? So you mentioned Airwallets and TransferWise. Like, do you see competition maybe emerging from other areas like a Stripe or something like that?
Yeah, so Stripe's a very interesting company. Stripe's a company that I know well, and I know some of the folks there well, and they've done an amazing job on the acquiring side, basically with a developer first solution that, you know, you can get up and running in 5 minutes from the acquiring side, right? For them, the disbursement side of the equation, I would argue, is a secondary piece of it. So it's a piece that's important that they're offering, but they haven't built their ecosystem around doing that. Payoneer is built around the ecosystem of payouts for merchants and corporates, and pay-ins for the SMBs of the world overall. Adyen and Stripe, for that matter, are built around the pay-ins for the corporate, and the rest of the services they offer are sort of secondary to that. So in some ways, if and when we move into the acquiring space, there will be a level of competition, but I don't view them as the primary competition, other than some of our clients use them on the acquiring side, and thus through that service also use them for some of the services that we provide.
Got it. And we've had the heads of disbursement from MasterCard and Visa on the podcast over the past year. How do you view the card networks in this whole sort of?
That's a very interesting question, right? And we work closely with MasterCard and Visa on disbursements as a whole. Mm-hmm. We believe that they are very well positioned with the acquisitions they've made with TransPay and Earthport. To play in this market. They have grown their Visa Direct, MasterCard Send. To those are channel plays, more or less. There's no reason why we couldn't actually create partnerships with them in some of the areas that they may have a product that would help with us. I mean, just to give you an idea on Payoneer, we have over 140 countries around the globe where we have 2 or more payout relationships or way for folks to pay out, and over 100 countries globally where we have more than 3. There's no reason why more than 3 couldn't include Visa and MasterCard's offerings to be a piece of that to help facilitate our transactions. Again, the one thing about MasterCard and Visa is MasterCard and Visa historically, and I say historically because I think this is important, weren't ever really owners of the customer as part of, issuers. And when I was at Capital One and at Washington Mutual / Chase before that, right? The whole thing was we own the customer and MasterCard and Visa provided the rails, right? I think unless they are going to take a complete overhaul to their philosophy, they're going to continue to own the rails. Makes sense. Are absolutely happy to work with and partner with anyone who can help provide rails in a more cost-efficient way for our end customers overall at Payoneer.
That makes a lot of sense. So can we drill a little bit further into Payoneer and some of the trends that you're seeing in the business? Can you speak to some of that? Absolutely.
So one of the biggest trends that we're seeing has come out of this COVID period, right? Which has been the dramatic shift into the world of e-commerce, right? And we have seen volumes, while as you know, we're a privately held company, I can't share the numbers, but we have seen the volumes from the e-commerce business grow tremendously during this period. And it is our belief that there will be no downtick from that, right? When this all ends, may it be 2 months, may it be 12 months, who knows? We don't actually see people stopping their newly formed behavior of shopping online and getting their Amazon Prime drop off in a day, as opposed to heading out to the stores, which is sad for the retail market, but really good for us and the customer as we are the leader in sort of facilitating e-commerce marketplaces throughout the globe. The other thing we're seeing and will continue to see is we have a heavy presence in the travel space that clearly got hit hard. But what I'd say is I think that we believe, I will say that we believe, I won't even think that we believe, that will come back, right? The moment that any good news comes out around the COVID items, essentially we begin to see an uptick in the travel space overall.
I can't imagine there's not so much pent up demand for travel at this point.
That's exactly right. And so, one could argue the trend, if you look at our trend lines, if you look at the volume in that industry, it's dropped a ton, but we firmly believe that that's going to bounce back and at the very least get to where it was previously. I don't think travel is going to stop. And so the combination of the two, when you talk about Payoneer, what's really exciting is, if the travel business goes back to what it was previously, but this e-commerce bounces where it was, that has a direct effect on the volume we put through our system and the revenue we grow as a company, because we are facilitating so much of that transaction marketplace.
Interesting. So in the remaining time we have, can we look a little to the future? I know you are a private company. I'm not looking for financial projections here, but what does 3 months into your role, what does the future look like for Payoneer? And I'm looking for anything from product rollouts to, further partnerships to just digging down, doing what you're doing, better, deeper.
Yeah, I mean, again, so I think what we are very excited about is a few things. One, we are a global company as it is. We feel very strongly about our customer, about our employee base, and keeping that global. And I think what we've seen is this global model will continue to grow, and it's allowing us to sort of even disaggregate some of our hiring. As you probably know or may have heard, we are adding a lot of folks year over year. We have a hiring plan which has us growing in double-digit percentages, even by the end of the year, if we can find the right people. And so I'd welcome your listener base, if they think they're the right people, feel free to reach out. But we're not constrained. We used to kind of think we constrained. You have to be near an office. You have to be this. And even as evidenced by myself coming into this role, I relocated to the state of Virginia, and our main office is in New York. And that's not really a huge deal overall in helping to work and run the company. So that's an internal way of looking that we're excited. Externally, we're very excited about some of the new business lines that we've launched and the acquisition that we did last year. So we did an acquisition of a company called Untitled. It was our first venture into the merchant services space. We are working on evolving that product to work for both our enterprises and our small businesses. And that will give us sort of an eye into what may potentially go down the path of becoming more and more ingrained into the acquiring side of the world, either as a partner or potentially a competitor down the road. Internally, what we're also seeing is huge desire and volume for the seller ecosystem within the marketplace and the supply chains within the marketplace to work with each other and help with each other and find better ways to pay within each other. And that's sort of an exciting line of business, right? We have these huge sellers from, an Amazon or a Walmart or whoever it may be who come on. Well, they have a whole supply chain to deal with. And what we're finding is our outside products and even some of our inside, our new products, as well as some of our existing products, like the VAT services, the payment, pay with Payoneer features, et cetera, are all becoming, they're growing tremendously because of the value we're adding and helping to add to let these small businesses actually grow.
It sounds like a very exciting future ahead for Payoneer. Charles, thank you very much for joining us on the Tearsheet podcast today.
Thanks a lot.